The big news, there's going to be a new wrestling promotion started, a new promotion on the horizon. The man behind it, the son of Chico and the Man, Freddie Prinze Jr. One of my favorite, this is the biggest mind-blowing thing to me, is that I loved Chico and the Man when I was 10 years old. Freddie Prinze, Jack Albertson, The Garage, the whole 9 yards. He was the hottest stand-up comic on The Tonight Show. Blah, blah, blah. You saw him everywhere. Even before that was right the same year I started watching wrestling. If you had come into my home, Brian Last, 50 years ago, well, if you'd come into my home 50 years ago, some would have been wrong because you're not that old.
I'd be in my time machine.
Time machine. If you'd have come into my home and said, hey, that guy that you are watching on network television, I think it was CBS, every week on this television show, you're going to get into the wrestling business, and 50 years from now, that guy's son is going to start a wrestling promotion, and he's going to make the announcement, and he's going to say one of the things that he's been doing to get ready to launch this wrestling promotion is listening to your podcast as preparation. And then I would have said, my 10-year-old self, what's a podcast? Because there was no such a thing.
But what do you think would have been more outrageous for someone to say, there, Chico on Chico and the Man, his son one day will name check you when talking about getting into wrestling, or the idea that, hey, that guy that fixed your bumper in Chicago, he's going to be a billionaire, and his son is going to quote you and start a wrestling company. What's more ridiculous?
I'm still going to go with Chico and the Man, because Chico, don't get discouraged. The man, he ain't so hard to understand.
I always thought it would have been Buddy Hackett Jr. to get into wrestling, or maybe Don Rickles Jr. I had no idea it would have been Freddie Prinze.
You know, Alan Hale Jr. wouldn't have been bad in the wrestling business. He was a big, beefy fellow. But no, so I guess now we might have run off and left some of the listeners. But apparently Freddie Prinze Jr., who, as we've talked about here when it's come up on the program, and as a lot of people know, apparently was a writer for the WWE for some period of time and is now, I think, doing a podcast telling his stories or whatever. And he announced he's going to start a wrestling promotion. And not only that, but it's going to, did he say the wrestlers are going to have health insurance? We're hearing this again. Usually it's some secretive billionaire that's going to give the health insurance out. And then did Tony Khan ever say that? He's a billionaire, but not so secretive.
I don't think Tony ever said it, but I think
just the EVPs got it because they're employees.
It actually may have been just Cody that ever alluded to it. I don't even know if the other ones ever did in interviews, but Cody did, I think, publicly in interviews alluded to the idea there would be benefits for wrestlers.
You're a baseball fan. Is there a Wilpon or Wilton family?
Oh, I hate the fucking Wilpons. Yeah, they used to own the Mets. They fucking suck.
Okay, well, there was the story going around at somebody. This was maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and several.
No, it was longer. It was right before Bernie Madoff. That's when it was. It was before
Bernie Madoff with the money. Okay, well, then 10 years ago, whatever it was, that there was somebody connected with them that was going to start a wrestling promotion and give health insurance and benefits and 401ks, and several members of the wrestling fraternity, veterans, if you will, who you wouldn't think would have bit on that worm, swallowed the whole goddamn hook for a while. But then that, obviously, I mean, it was ridiculous on the face of it. With Freddie Prinze Jr., he's not a billionaire, so I can't think that he's going to attempt to start. He wouldn't say this if he wasn't planning to do something. He's not a billionaire, so he's not going to be attempting to or possibly have the reach or the contacts to do something the size of what Tony Khan has done. But it was a tickle that one of the things he said that he was doing to prep for creating this was listening to our shows but that's, I mean, you know, where else these days you're going to get an education in wrestling? So I guess that's not too off kilter. But I mean, what can, I don't know this guy. I've never met him. But like I said, he's not a billionaire. If he's in the show business world, but there have been other people in the show business world that still weren't able to pull something like this off. So what are the chances? And what conceivably could this be?
I don't know.
Well, why not? Why don't you know, Brian? I asked you a question. It's your job to answer it.
Well, it's your show. I can say that
I asked the question.
I've always heard that he's a really nice guy, and he always comes across like a really nice guy. And the idea that he's listening to this show, I'm sure he doesn't agree with everything, but maybe he's listening to pick up on some of the things that you say that are, some of the greatest observations about professional wrestling you could learn from. But I've also heard him do interviews in the past where he talks about his time in WWE, and there's a lot of stuff I think he has liked or been a part of that he's justified, and it's this kind of stuff we don't necessarily like. So when you hear him say he listens to the show, and one of the things he said he wanted for his potential promotion were storylines based in reality, and we could discuss that, it's promising. And I've said we need another alternative to AEW and WWE because we need something that's just completely serious. There's no reason. I watch baseball. They don't just break into goofy comedy in the middle of the game. There's no reason it can't be a wrestling product like that. Question becomes, he already said he doesn't want to book it. Who are you going to get to be the booker? Who are you going to get to be the executives? Who are you going to get to be your talent? That's where it becomes a problem, because you could have all these ideas of things you want to do, and it sounds like he is thinking in the way we would. What we think is the right direction. It sounds like he is at least alluding to that. But who are you going to get to put in there? Because I think part of the problem is you can't keep recycling the same old boobs who just look for anyone with money and they start salivating in wrestling. And that's the problem.
Well, and quite honestly, there aren't enough people that you described that are qualified and experienced to go around already to the companies that exist that are paying money that are already up and running. And so there's not like there's a lot left over. I continue to be amazed, and then when I think about it, know that nobody has hired Delirious, Hunter Johnston, in creative or television production. He's only done it for the last 10 or 12 years straight, but then I'm not amazed because he's overqualified and would probably, it'd be like, bringing in an astrophysicist to fucking tune up your goddamn motor.
But wrestling, I always say this, that AEW was a lost opportunity to develop wrestling executives. And the problem is just the whole structure there, for good or for bad. It's not really a structure for that right now, but
none of the people getting experience as executives or people in production in AEW are going to go on and become future executives and production people in other companies. The Hardleys, Twinkle Toes,
right?
QT, he's fairly been a disappointment from what I've heard. So
I have Jim a list here of some of the things that apparently Freddie Prinze, I guess he said this on a show because I'm reading quotes here.
Okay, well I know nothing about his mindset other than this initial announcement that I heard. So anything to narrow down, because the one thing that worries me is when people say they want reality-based angles or presentation storylines.
Yeah, storylines.
Whose reality? That's the same thing Shitstain said. And there is no reality anywhere on this planet or any other alternate universes that was like Shitstain's version of reality. So when I hear reality, the concept, yes, but the execution often is what?
Yeah, and the other thing is reality is the way wrestling traditionally was. And I'm not saying it has to be like old school, but traditionally it was shot the way sports were shot. This is the arena. This is where it happens. If there's a confrontation, it's happening out here, and they're arguing about something, that's reality-based. When all of a sudden it's, we got to get a camera in the back, someone's being run over, and they're being dragged. And then the spacemen are landing. Like, that's not reality-based, and that's what I worry about. But here's some of the things that Freddie Prinze apparently said he wants from his wrestling promotion. He wants a 2-hour show. He wants storylines based in reality. He wants men and women to be given equal time. He wants to own the space it's filmed in. And he wants to be a SAG show. Of course, SAG being the Screen Actors Guild.
Well, starting with the last first, well, the easy one, he wants to own the place where it's filmed. That's the Davis Arena OVW concept, or any of the other
Arena
independents
Mexico.
Arena Mexico, yeah, in that form, that big a place. I don't think he's looking at building an 18,000 seat arena.
Of course not, but in lean times, you don't have to worry about where you're going to run a show.
Right. And that's why so many of independents have modified their places. I mean, TNA shot at Universal Studios. They had a sound stage, but they didn't own it, and they were at the mercy of ridiculous rent, especially toward the end. So, yes, a great idea to own your space where you're shooting in, and that's where you build your fan base, and pick the town carefully, make sure it can support live wrestling. What was the last note?
He wants the promotion or the show, I guess, to be a Screen Actors
SAG.
Guild show, SAG.
This will be interesting, because then what differentiates his wrestling from the WWE's wrestling, except probably for budget? How would that will be very interesting to see if he not only allows it, but courts it, but insists on it. And that sheds a light with this union on what these other companies are doing. You see where I'm going with this? That is the same exact thing, probably with, different wording in the contracts, but the same general genre of sport, entertainment, profession, whatever. Why wouldn't they go after Vince and or Tony Khan and or whatever the case?
It'd be interesting, too, if the show is filmed in New York or Los Angeles. There's a chance the entire production, down to the wrestlers, could all be union. That'll be a first.
But then if you join a union to wrestle for Freddie Prinze, then if the WWE wants to sign you for 5 times the money, but you're in a union, can you just not be in the union? Because they won't take you if you're in a union.
Well, that's a great question.
Or if they don't take you if you're in a union, then is that some kind of criminal enterprise that they're conducting?
That's a great question, Jim. I think you should consult your union rep on that.
Well, as a matter of fact, who would be the union rep for a business that's never had a union?
Well, it would have to be someone from SAG. Does SAG get one of their own people, or does SAG try to look for wrestling expertise in their union
Well,
reps?
that's what I'm saying. And who's in SAG that has wrestling expertise? And then is it some nitwit that's done some stunt work and is nobody, and suddenly he's the guy that SAG goes to deal with the fucking Vince McMahon and the WWE and all these other places? That, I mean, this could be entertaining.
Even funnier than that, just situations like, listen, they want me to get color. I don't want to get color. Okay, we'll take care of it. By the way, what's color? I mean, that's what we'll end up running into.
And that, again, Vince McMahon and the WWE, and I still say this, I don't know what Tony Khan's finances are, because they said he gets $100 million from the network, but he spent $80 million on a video game, and he's paid these guys a ridiculous amount of money. I don't fucking know, but I know that Vince McMahon and the WWE is financially stable enough to give the guys insurance, pay for them benefits, do more than they do, without having the government tell them to, or an outside union coming in, because we had this talk on the program, and I bet it's out there on the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. It just passed 294,000 subscribers. But we had this conversation about unionization, that who, in effect, is the union representative, and how in the world would a union work with a business that is completely unique? And one of the things would be, yeah, and I need to get some juice when he clocks you with the fucking title belt. And then the union guy comes over and says, you want him to do what? Yeah, he needs to take a razor blade and cut his fucking head slightly so he'll bleed after Junior over there hits him over the head with that 20-pound fucking metal championship belt. Well, that could happen at any point in any wrestling show anywhere in America, but I bet you that would be the first time that any union representative had been faced with that conundrum. So there's going to be a learning process. I think Vince ought to do it with his guys without governmental or independent organization intervention just because he fucking can and has the money to and can afford it. But for a lot of these other companies, that'd be entertaining, to say the least. But it just trying to get Sinclair Broadcasting to understand the promotional side of the wrestling business on just a brief basis was hard enough without trying to teach some Hollywood union acting representative, oh, this is the wrestling business. But
one of the other things listed here, of course, was 2-hour show. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't. If he can get 2 hours on something that people can watch, well, bless him. If he's got enough wrestlers to fill 2 hours.
See, I see 2 hours is too long. I know everyone now is 2 hours or 3 hours, but to me, it still goes back to an effective show. I don't even think 60 minutes can be done anymore. 90 minutes is an effective show.
But again, I think this is the least thing that we need to worry about right now. What he's saying, I'd like to have a 2-hour show. Well, I'd like to have goddamn, well, not anymore. I don't have the energy to use it. As good as I'd like to have a 12-inch dick, but fuck. It's then it would just take more time when I'd have to wash it and manscape it and everything before I could show it around.
What?
But you heard me. But the thing is, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, whatever, first he's got to get something on a platform that people will watch. So in his perfect world, in his mind, if he could have a 2-hour show, well, if he got a chance to get an hour on a station that people watch versus 2 hours on C-SPAN, he'd probably take the hour. I'm not worried about that. The only thing that he said in there that concerns me is women and men getting equal time. And then again, you're dooming yourself to excluding talent just to have half and half for no reason, because you're going to find more qualified, talented guys and I'm not saying there's a plethora of either. And there's not that many trained fucking dogs too. Thankfully, the British Bulldogs aren't a team anymore. There's not trained anybody and talented anybody anymore in large numbers. But you're going to find more guys that deserve to be on TV right now than you are girls. So if you're trying to do half and half, then you're excluding some guys who would be better performers just to put some girls on that ain't ready for prime time. AEW is paying a fortune to talent and doesn't give a fuck apparently how many people they sign up, and they still can barely field a women's roster without using the rejects from Twinkle Toes' repertory companies in Japan. So that's the only thing he said there that concerns me.
That concerns me too, and I think it's because it's now become just something everyone's supposed to accept and go with if you promote wrestling. You have to have women on every show. And I think the high-end women's wrestlers are as good as the top men's wrestlers nowadays. We'll talk about Becky Lynch later, but Becky Lynch is a fucking star. You watch her, you're like, yeah, this is a main eventer. I get it. But almost always,
there's a more dramatic fall off toward the top of the roster.
It's a complete fall off, and usually the person who has the least training or is the least ready for TV that's on TV is going to be someone in one of the women's matches, especially in AEW. It's happened way too many times. Big Swole was on TV a lot. Whatever you want to say, Big Swole wasn't ready for TV. And there's a lot of other people like that. But when all of a sudden we're going to have men and women, it's like people forget that for years wrestling focused on just the men's division. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's what it was, and it worked. Maybe there should be a company that just does that, because there aren't enough good women wrestlers to go around. And maybe just give the women their own show. Let's get proof of concept already.
Oh, wait a minute. Don't they have that? Wow, right?
They're
the women of wrestling? They've been talking about it for years. Have they actually fucking shot a show?
The only thing I know about it is I just saw a bunch of stuff that they fell out with Tessa Blanchard, which probably shouldn't be a surprise.
Well, or Tessa Blanchard fell out with them. Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Oh, we've experienced this chicken and this egg several times. I'm pretty sure we know which came first this time. But I think just arbitrarily announcing that we're going to have men and women, why? What's the actual good reason for that? Just have a men's division. And I think someone should really produce a high-end women's wrestling show. And let's get proof of concept. Let's see what kind of audience it draws on its own and what it'll get. Because the top-end women's wrestlers are really fucking good. And after that, you have to tie yourself to your seat sometimes not to get up and go to the kitchen or go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
That's the bathroom break match usually.
Another thing I will point out is that I have no problem with the top level girls having an athletic contest. And somebody say, oh, he still calls them girls. You know what? Fuck y'all. It's girl wrestling. It's the boys. And it's Moolah's company was Girl Wrestling Enterprises. Every midget that I ever met introduced themselves to me as a midget. So blow me. But
they introduced themselves to you as a midget, not as a midget blow me.
No, I'm just saying for all you people who don't like that I call them midgets, blow me.
Only Lord Littlebrook introduced himself that way, yes.
No, he didn't do that. He was very polite. Where was I going with it? But the point is, I am fully behind the great athletic contest between the top female athletes in our profession. When they start having fights, grudge matches, hardcore, no DQ bullshit, I'm sorry. They can't do it. I can't believe it. I can't watch girls in a fucking Terry Funk and Jerry Lawler fucking no DQ match. It's not believable. And that is, after all, the ultimate goal of any professional wrestling project is to make the people that are watching it lose themselves in it and believe it. And so I love to see Charlotte and fucking Becky and Rhea and Bianca, and the top, and Serena in some cases. The top girls athletically have top quality athletic contest. That's fine. The fucking bullshit with the grudge matches, I'm sorry. Then it becomes two girls fake fighting, and that's just bullshit.
Well, beyond that, like I said, the top end women wrestlers are phenomenal and as you said, a pretty quick drop off. And it's not enough to justify another promotion having another women's division. You can work in WWE, you can work in NXT, you can work in AEW. I think the NWA has women on their shows. I don't know what the fuck MLW does. I don't know what the fuck any of these other indies do. So now he's going to do it? What pool of talent is he going to pick from? Where's he going to get these talented people ready for TV? To be equal with the men who are ready for TV. Wrestling wasn't always men and women. Wrestling was men wrestling. And now they've introduced another thing and a lot of people accept it, but I think it drove a lot of people off. Quite frankly. I know people don't want to say that and people don't want to admit that, but I think there should be a wrestling option also that just has men's divisions and not women's divisions.
It drove a lot of things drove a lot of people off from wrestling, but that's one of them, which contributes to the problem I mentioned, that it's either not fucking badass guys mad at each other trying to pluck their fucking eyeballs out anymore, which is what bloodthirsty people wanted to see in large numbers. It's now an exhibition of entertainment with girls, and that was a significant portion of the audience that wanted to see people that were mad at each other bust each other over the head with shit are not served. And henceforth, they don't want to see it. That's where we lost a lot of people. And the rest of them just because it's just not as good as it used to be. So now with Mr. Prinze, we've got fewer people than ever watching wrestling, but they're watching more wrestling each than ever before. And they're spending more money each on wrestling than ever before, which is the only reason why this thing hasn't completely fallen into the fucking hole, because there are so many more people that used to watch wrestling and don't now than there are that actually do. The people that do have banded together and crowdfunded AEW and done everything to pick up the slack, but we can't keep losing people. And now there's promotion after promotion trying to open and or expand and or operate, but there's no new audience being made. And the ones that we drove away have been driven away so well and for such good reasons that they're not anxious to come back. Except if you gave them what they were seeing until you stopped giving it to them, which was grown adult badass men that they believed hated each other, fucking trying to gouge each other's eyeballs out and kick each other in the balls and generally fucking commit mayhem that you could believe. Not that was made no sense, was totally illogical, was obviously patently phony, requiring cooperation, and perpetrated by guys that looked like you could whip half of them. So there you go. Freddie, did you listen good to that one?
And who are the announcers going to be? That's the other problem. It's going to be another promotion. Here's what I fear. I shouldn't say it like it's going to be. I fear it'll be another promotion that starts up with some Michael Cole clone just yelling at you. Because that's the other thing. The tone of wrestling needs to change. It's not just, we need another promotion where they can yell at you and tell you how excited you are to watch this. No, we need a completely different tone of things. And there's Freddie Prinze Jr., who was a big enough WWE fan that he ended up working there as a writer. This guy had a film career. He ended up going to WWE to be a writer. That's how big a fan he was of WWE. Is he going to be the person who's going to put all those pieces together, or is this just going to be another NWA, another MLW? I mean, is it even going to get to that point and get off the ground? Will be a Lucha Underground, filmed on a set for a season, and then that's done. We really don't know too much other than he announces intentions.
Well, you know what? If he needs to listen, and listen closely to these podcasts that we do to get a firm grip on the classic wrestling psychology, then Brian, I've got to think that he needs to block out extraneous drivel and noises and talk that he's going to hear and just focus on what's really important, almost like he's hearing it inside his own head. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
I think the best way to do that, Freddie, and if you will send me your mailing address, I will make sure that you get a complimentary pair of the Raycon wireless earbuds.
Will you?
I will absolutely do it for a guy like Freddie Prinze, who needs all the help he can get if he's getting in the wrestling business. Because you know the easiest way to make $5 million in the wrestling business, start with $10 million. But folks, if you...
He also said don't call him Junior, call him Freddie K. Prinze.
You doesn't got to call him Freddie K. Why, you could call him Fred, or you could call him Frederick, or you could call him Frederica, but you doesn't got to call him Freddie. But anyway, if you have a mother in your life also, folks, because this weekend is not only the weekend of the Kentucky Derby, it's Mother's Day. So either Saturday or Sunday, bet on your old nag. Folks, personalize your Mother's Day gift or the mother figure in your life or any mother effer you know. Personalize that gift with something they really need. And, you know, the moms are still the people that do a lot of the work, right? They need their hands. They need to multitask. Mothers are masters of multitasking. They're burping the kid in one hand and they're feeding the kid in the other hand and they're juggling the puppy dog on their foot. They need to be hands-free with vivid voice technology to take phone calls from you offspring that are calling them to say Happy Mother's Day and borrow money. Raycons are user-friendly for those mothers who are just switching to the wireless earbuds. They're easy to set up and easy to use. And they got the seamless Bluetooth pairing, so your blue-haired old mother with her blue teeth will have earbuds that pair up with them. And then she can wear a brown tie. Plus, they come in a bunch of fun color options, so mother can have colored things sticking out of her ears. Sometimes they're jelly beans. I know that children sometimes like to hide their jelly beans in their mother's ear. Kids, if you're listening, put some jelly beans in your mother's ears the next time they're sleeping.
No, don't do that. No. Don't put anything in anyone's ears when they're sleeping or awake.
Well, here's what you can put in somebody's ear: the optimized gel tips. For the perfect in-ear fit, these earbuds are so comfortable they will not budge. Trust me, I'm telling you, I've seen mothers have these in their ear, and they take a belt off the wall and just go to wailing at 6 or 7 of their kids.
No.
These things don't fall off.
No, there's no wailing on the kids. Stop.
No wailing on the kids. The kids were certainly wailing. For the mom on the go, these Raycon wireless earbuds, the everydays, they offer 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery life. 32 hours, that's longer than your mother was in labor with you. So the least you can do after you did all that damage to her goddamn innards is to get her earbuds with a longer battery life than your labor took, you little fucking ingrate reprobates. But these Raycon everyday earbuds are priced just right because you get quality audio at half the price of other premium audio brands. And besides that, again, if you're so cheap, this is the only thing that you're thinking about to get your mother. No card, no dinner. At least you can do is get some Raycon everyday earbuds for mom with 49,000 five-star reviews. Tell mom how much you love her and make sure she hears it in crystal clear audio quality. And believe me, if you get her Raycon wireless earbuds for Mother's Day, she'll get the message. You go to buyraycon.com/JCE. That's BUYRAYCON.com/JCE to get 15% off your Mother's Day order. Even if it's a day or so after Mother's Day, I think this will work. Buyraycon.com/JCE. Don't make mom have to take that belt off the wall and go to Whalen.